You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. Ibrahim Kopa in Tamale says the police service, okay, I'll bring you his message. It's not coming out as clearly as I would love to have. Paul Hehi says that let the judge decide the inside Ghana suit. Okay, we haven't gotten there yet. I thought it was about the prisons matter. Ibrahim Kopa in Tamale says the police service, and to a large extent the Ministry of Interior is gradually losing confidence from the Ghanaian public. Not too long ago, the ordinary Ghanaians suffered first-class corruption in the hands of the police service with respect to the recent police recruitment scam. Now they have allegedly allowed fugitives unduly in our society. Neti says that the conditions in our cells are dehumanizing, and not all the persons there are hardened criminals, but they are all boxed up there. Their due dates for courts are ignored. You're right about that. Certainly, they will find a way out, hence the cell breaks. Okay, you seem to provide some more information to those who want us to look at the doomsday effect on what the prisoners may be doing. But I thought that those were such key installations that there will not be lights out. But it appears that they are also affected and they can't continue to live in those cells without electricity. Very, very interesting there. Now, the Awudu Omele says the police are the ones helping the jail breaks. Okay, so now the police service will have to take note of that. Some people actually believe that the police is the one assisting the whole enterprise. We'll do a quick about the IMF and how much they have given us so far and how that is supposed to help stabilize the cedi a bit. Recently, the cedi is beginning to have a mind of its own again and behaving some way. And one of the ministers of finance says that the money that has come in should assist, or that's coming in from the IMF should assist to stabilize the situation. There are those who say, well, we've gotten the money, but we just really didn't need it. Nana Akufo-Addo, it's reported to be suggesting that he may renegotiate the IMF bailout terms if it becomes necessary. Why is he saying so? We'll find out about all of those things. Then you have the Swiss ambassador who is suggesting that the IMF bailout doesn't guarantee a release of frozen donor funds, which have also brought us quite a bit of trouble. President Kufuor has also said that the IMF bailout is a sign of malfunctioning economy, among other things. I'll start with the IMF issue with Gabi Asare Ochri Dako.
Yeah, I think it's important to look at it. First of all, how many countries are currently receiving IMF bailout? And why are they doing so? And these are countries that have failed in managing their finances. I think that's how you have to look at it.
We went for policy credibility, and we are supposed to get a total of 918 million. We have received 100 million so far.
12.5%. We are receiving. I don't know if
we are receiving, yeah.
And that is going directly to the Bank of Ghana to help us in terms of, because what is happening is, if you notice, government is being overborrowing from the
central bank.
And beyond that, we are having issues. As we speak, this year so far, the cedi is the worst performing currency in Africa. This year so far. So really, the idea is to see how that can help pop it up. We're receiving 12.5% out of the $918 million or so. And it's supposed to be a 3-year program. So you begin to even wonder whether or not we'll be able to receive all that amount. Okay? Because at the same time, Kenya also went for a similar facility, and they received far greater percentage as their first chance than we are. Secondly,
No, what's the fear? This is the amount of money that we are earmarked to get. So what's the fear that we may not get all of it?
Well, the fear is because there's a serious deficit in policy credibility. That is the fear, you know. And if you look at it, look, I'm not too sure. We need the IMF because we have lacked discipline in solving our own issues. But the money from the IMF, I'm not too sure how far that will go in resolving the issues. Because don't forget, 2 years ago, we went to the Eurobond to borrow 1 billion. We still had issues. That by the middle of last year, our currency was competing with the hryvnia, the Ukraine currency, in terms of being the worst in the world. Even Somalia shilling was doing better than ours. And they don't have a central bank, as it were. You know, so, and then last year, we went for another 1 billion. So when you look at it, in the scheme of things, fortunately, the IMF is allowing us to go for another 1 billion Eurobond this year. But that's also to go directly to the central bank because of how even the central bank has been abused. It's interesting to note that if you look at like 2008, since 2008 to now, in terms of government going to the central bank to borrow, it has increased by over 800%. You know, so really, in terms of the monetary policy, we are abusing that aspect of how things are done. And the IMF, in giving us this paltry amount, which we needed because we need some policy credibility there, they are saying to government that, look, for this year, you can't borrow beyond 5% of the revenue you raised last year. Whilst even our law, okay, in this country, you're allowed to borrow up to 10%. But why is it so? Because the previous year, government borrowed between 18 to 20% beyond what it was allowed to borrow, okay, beyond its revenue. And next year, they are saying that, I think by next year to 2017, 0% borrowing from the central bank. So all these things are tied. Beyond that, what are the other things that they are looking for us to do? They are also saying that there should be, government should do what they call right-sizing. You know, now they use terms. It's really downsizing or just laying people off. But now they say right-sizing because they feel that the size is not right. So lay people off. But what has government negotiated? They've negotiated that will kick in 2017. So what it means is that, look, Ghanaians, 2016, we have elections. Okay? So to all public sector workers in Ghana, vote for us in 2016. And we'll make sure that by 2017 you lose your job. That's basically what it is. You know, so if you hear the leader of the main opposition party saying that we will seriously look at renegotiating the IMF deal, I think that's basically what the MPP is saying. And I think they would have the space to do so because it is widely accepted in this country and outside this country, based on the records, that in terms of policy credibility, MPP is better than the NDC in terms of managing the economy. Because, and I'm not saying it out of bias, I'm saying it because these are the facts. And what are the facts? What are the facts? Look at the revenues that have come into the hands of this government. What are we saying? We've been told that we are going for funds from the IMF, but let me just show you some figures. We are looking for 900 million. What happened last year in terms of amount spent in the office that my brother on my left side works at? Office of the Chief of Staff was allocated 7.5 million, but spent what? 48.8 million last year. Okay?
Yes.
This is and this is at the presidency, nowhere else. Not a department, nowhere else, at the presidency. We are told that GMPC is using about 300 million for capacity building. Okay? You are going to the IMF for how much? 980 million over 3 years, and you are being given 100 and what? 100 and something million this year. Okay? You can spend 300 million on capacity building. GMPC had plans to build an office for $64 million. Okay? As Dr. Barima said the other day, what we're receiving from the IMF is equivalent to building 3 Kumasi markets per NDC pricing. You know, so we're talking about what? The flyover at Circle, Kasua, the rest of them, And what's the company that's doing these products? Is it Queiroz Galboa? You know there's a Petrobras scandal in Brazil.
Right.
And these are the companies that have been involved with this scandal because what do? They inflate the cost of projects so that they can pay commission to politicians. And that's really, because the bottom line, we are going to the IMF because we have been reckless. We have been to the point of even what one could allege criminality in some regard.
Okay, so let's not go back to that debate.
Yes.
The 100 million is coming.
Yeah.
Should we not look at that as some good news? At least the claim that it will help to stabilize the cedi, it will bring some confidence in the economy, and these are the things we need to keep the economy running.
You see, if you look at, if you don't deal with the cause, then you may forget that you shouldn't have been here in the first place. And you know, what is the good news? At what cost? One, they say they will remove all subsidies. Whether the subsidies are targeted at the poor or not, those subsidies are going. IMF are not necessarily interested in economic growth. IMF, their policies have never been to, as it were, help you create jobs. It is to make sure that, look, you can pay your debts, okay? And paying debts doesn't necessarily directly benefit the Ghanaian. Because look, in Argentina, they've stopped them from even, they have to cut down the salaries to what? Doctors and teachers. In June, if you're not careful, what's happening with the doctors? They're going to go on strike.
No, we have assurance from the government that the service conditions will be provided by then, so there will not be any problems.
Assurance? Mm. Oh, really? From which government?
They're working on it, the government.
This government? Yes. Assurance? Really? I mean,
okay, we meant to touch
let's be serious
on this issue.
Let's be serious about assurance from this government. Yeah. Look, because the IMF thing, they have agreed that they are not going to increase salaries to match inflation. It is set. There's no way this government this year.
And the doctors are not aware of this?
But I'm saying the doctors, but it doesn't stop them from trying to negotiate.
Okay.
So it's up to government to find the money from somewhere. But clearly, it is not going to happen. Workers are going to suffer, and they're not going to suffer because the IMF says so. Okay. They are going to suffer because we have been reckless in how we spend the money that we've been getting. Right. Because look, bottom line, brother, over the last 6 years alone, revenues from gold, it's been double what it was over the last 8 years, the previous 8 years under the NPP. Cocoa, the same way. You know, so when you are looking at all this, even in terms of, it's true.
It's not.
Look, let me tell you, I look at figures, and if you look at figures...
Okay, you're supposed to wrap up, then I go to him to have
the figures, my figures show that between 2009 and 2014, the world price in terms of cocoa has shot up 50% what it used to be in the previous 8 years under the NPP.
Okay.
Is that wrong?
Well,
and
the
same with gold. Is that wrong?
It's relative.
It's relative. Of course, it's relative.
And today are not the same.
They are not the same.
So my daughter, who was then 8, is 16 today. So the conditions do change.
The conditions do change because 8 years ago we didn't have oil, but you have oil. Okay, we have sold oil to the tune of 13.7 billion. 3 billion has come to government. You know, so at the end of the day, you've received all these revenues. And in terms of even, they talk about a single salary structure. If you look at the records, okay, in terms of the percentage increase in salaries in the 8 years under the NPP as compared to this, it was higher there. You know, so at the end of the day, you ask yourself, where has all the money gone? And what is happening is that we are spending more and more money to pay our debts rather than investing in capital expenditure or capital projects that will create jobs. So you are looking at it, the IMF will not create jobs. The IMF will not make sure that the salaries match up with inflation. IMF will make sure that hopefully, the reckless spending will go down. And I think that's the positive aspect of it.
Okay, thank you.
But in terms of expanding the economy, I'm not so sure.
Right, that's a very controversial, approach to way to look at it, really. But
is it factual? It's factual.
But Dr. Park,
yes,
the fact that the IMF was able to smoothly conclude the deal with Ghana, and now we have 114 million, is it, that is coming to us. is a good sign that speculation earlier that all of these might not work because of whatever problems there were, you know, it's a good sign that you have been able to do some good job in that direction, right?
Yes, Samson. I mean, you know, Gabby took the opportunity to do the usual rendition. I mean, I quite clearly would have been surprised if he had not said the things that he said. Obviously, he is not here to applaud government or to see something positive about what government has been able to do in the midst of very challenging circumstances. You know, he has his own figures. I don't want to question his sources, but I also have my figures. And so whilst we believe very clearly that we didn't get to the need to engage the IMF because we wanted to, that there were other mitigating factors which made it impossible for us not to engage the IMF as a way forward in terms of enhancing the president's transformational agenda. I mean, he mentioned the single span salary structure. We may disagree, but we believe that it contributed greatly to the hole that we found ourselves in, and of course had to dig ourselves out. He talks about cocoa and gold. Everyone knows that in the past 2-3 years, the world market prices of cocoa and gold, which are our dominant exports, plummeted. I mean, when you lose in excess of 1.5 billion as a result of, you know, commodity prices not being in your favor as a primary commodity producing country, you cannot expect that not to have a negative impact on your economy. And of course, we know, even the IMF report in granting us this program stated very clearly that we have also suffered some serious revenue losses as a result of the erratic power supply. So there are practical reasons which have led us to where we are. But the good news is that in spite of all the cynicism, the outward promotion of doom and gloom, even an attempt to discredit government by suggesting that government officials had concocted figures and cooked them up, the IMF has granted us the program. And it is a program because there are a series of activities that are being outlined by the government to ensure that we do not get back to the conditions that precipitated the need for us to engage the IMF. And he speaks as though the NDC government is the only government that this country has had which has ever gone to the IMF. I mean, he knows fully well that under, you know, the NPP government led by His Excellency, the former President Ajekum Kufuor, they engaged the IMF.
When?
And indeed, but why? Do you want me to waste time and energy telling you that you engaged the IMF during your tenure?
He's not disputing that fact.
2001.
You did.
And they came out of an
You
IMF
did.
program 2007.
So the point I'm making
took us
is that
back in 2009.
the point
and
I'm
went back in
the point I'm making is that
2014.
engaging the IMF to help us gain policy credibility is not something new. And in fact, if you look at your own website, Major Online, the prognosis are very positive. I mean, the IMF has already come out with a report suggesting that we are going to see an upliftment of the economy. They have been predicting that by the end of 2016,
3.5%.
you know, the growth is going to be about 6%. And you can check it out. So it is very clear that those who thought that, you know, the heavens were closing in, Armageddon was about to occur, you know, the nation had become unlivable and that there was no hope, we have restored the policy credibility. And it is not by accident that the IMF itself has already come out with a prediction that the economy is going to pick up and that if we focus on what we know we need to do, which we outlined.
You're talking about the economy picking up and all of that.
Yeah, which we outlined at the Central Consensus, which they refused to attend.
If you read the IMF's own survey, they begin by saying that the IMF Executive Board approved the 918 million loan to Ghana to support a reform program aimed at faster growth and job creation while protecting social spending. Gavi doesn't believe that there will be job creation, there will be any economic growth.
But
it's just to pay your debt.
That is my problem with Gavi and the MPP. They choose not to recognize the fact that the same institutions that they pride and hold up high, when they make comments or issue reports that are against the fortunes or interests of the government, they accept them. But yet when they come up with these positive prognosis and projections, they tend to question the credibility and the basis of such institutions. So that is their cup of tea. We want to make sure.
I'm not focusing on
what you described.
I'm focusing on your
What you described was quite clearly the opposite of what the IMF is saying.
Which is what? That they are going to create jobs?
Of course.
Is the IMF saying they're going to create jobs?
We want to create jobs. Yeah? It is part of the president's agenda.
Is going
we
down?
want to grow the economy. We want to protect our social programs. And we are doing that. And let me be quick to add that these conclusions were not reached accidentally. The president made it part of his negotiating policy that jobs must be created, we shouldn't lose jobs,
so
the economy should grow, and of course, we must at all costs protect our social
Gabi raises
programs.
the issue also of the speculation why we have received only the first tranche of just about 114 million.
He wasn't part of the negotiation team. He wouldn't understand.
No, it's mischief. But let's interrogate what you say is mischief. That he's comparing other countries who got the first tranche far higher than you are getting. And he's suggesting that it could be that even though they are coming to help you gain policy credibility, they still cannot trust.
Kenya got 78% upfront.
Samson,
you are getting 12.5% upfront.
Samson, I don't want to speculate because I don't have the capacity to know the details of the negotiation.
But does it not suggest to you that there may be some problem somewhere?
That is very subjective.
The first tranche, at least, ought to be more than half.
That is very subjective.
It's about credibility.
The tranches, as they are going to come, are part of the negotiated agreement. Okay. And since you and I, to quote Baumia, were not there, and we can't understand the factors that informed the decision.
But we can interrogate.
It is not fair to speculate the possible reasons comparing us to other countries.
If the first tranche will not do any, will not do any huge or significant impact to assist, provide the solution we are looking for, then what's the need for it?
Oh no, but you can't understand that. You wouldn't understand the policy position and what has informed
the financial analysts in the country are suggesting that it will do
sooner
very
or later,
little or nothing at all to the city,
the minister
as the minister claims.
The Minister for Finance and his team would have reasonable explanations to this, but I reject the proposition that this has happened as a result of a lack of trust. If they didn't trust that we will be able to implement the program as agreed upon, certainly they would not have granted us the opportunity to execute the program, which in itself was born out of our own local economic consensus, which Gabi and his people, as usual, refused to participate.
So let's just see this very brief portion of what Morgan Stanley, had to say about the process, that after the difficult negotiations spanning several months, we have been able to chalk the amounts that was supposed to come. And then they say here that the extremely low amount of funds disbursed also means that BOP support remains weak.
Balance of payment.
Yes, balance of payment support remains weak, and that downside pressure on the FX is unlikely to reverse meaningfully anytime soon.
The foreign exchange.
Yeah, that's the question I asked, that if we are receiving what may be seen as pittance in the whole equation, what would be the need for it in the first place?
But Samson, these are speculations.
They are facts.
Why don't you refer to the report that the IMF has put out, which is on your website?
Morgan Stanley has some credibility.
Yes,
it will not just
Morgan Stanley is not the IMF.
Okay.
No, Ghana does not have a program with Morgan Stanley.
The fact is,
you have
a weak currency.
Again, Dr. Park, what do you say to Nana Akufo-Addo's suggestion, which sounds like a warning? Will the IMF want to take a back seat will it disturb the IMF in any way that he's saying that supposing he wins the elections, he would want to renegotiate the terms? Will that make them want to, sit back and say, look, let's be cautious in the manner we'll go about disbursing the funds to Ghana?
Well, obviously, I don't think he's going to win the election, first of all. And secondly, if he does by some stroke of a miracle or magic,
anything is possible.
Well, yeah, he would be, as the sovereign president of the Republic of Ghana. I think that if he so feels that there was a need for another look, I believe that would be within his
I've spoken to an analyst who says, I've spoken to an analyst who says that that comment is not good. It sends the wrong signals to the international community.
But see, you certainly are beating me to delve into another dimension of the NPP propaganda in terms of trying to suggest that conditions are so bad that, we should lose hope and throw our hands up in the air. And we saw this even in the run-up to the 2012 election, where they were sending their officers and surrogates out to different parts of the world, meeting business leaders and other investor communities,
to discouraging them, to deceive them
by using language that frightened them. And of course, this was compounded by the Supreme Court case. I know that the likes of Gabi were out and about, talking about how dire the situation was. And so I think that this Mr. Akufo-Addo,
you think what happens in Ghana, the world is not aware of what is happening in Ghana?
Them, to let them believe that, investing in our country certainly is not going to.
All right, thank you. Just hold on, Gabi. Just hold on, Gabi. Kwaku, let's have your take on the IMF.
Yeah, a quick one. Something Gabi said about the company, the Brazilian company undertaking. I don't think it's the same company.
No, it's the same company.
It's been in the news, though.
No, it's not. Petrobras is the same company.
No, it's not. Yes, it is not the same company that has filed for
I'm not. No, that's Engaheria.
Yes.
That's not what I was talking about.
No,
I was talking about a scandal in Brazil. But in terms of Gavua and Gaharia, they have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Yes.
Okay.
So I didn't mention that.
Okay.
I didn't mention that. But I've discussed it with you, so maybe you thought that's...
I've got that difference.
Because that's the impression I got.
No, I've discussed it before with you earlier.
Yes,
so you thought I said it here.
that you have transplanted the same time.
Okay.
But they are still related, because it's the son. It's the son of
but they
the
are
one,
two different companies.
Yeah, right.
Just to be precise.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Look, what is it that has led us to an IMF bailout? It's not the first time, of course, that Ghana has gone to the IMF. We indeed signed onto IMF membership in 1958 under the great Osagyefo leadership, a year after independence.
I was asking Gabi whether it's not possible to abandon going back to the question of what has led us there, because we seem to have discussed that over and again.
Yes,
now that we are done with
there.
it and the deal and the money is coming in,
I'm not going back there at all.
We may be looking forward.
I'm not going back
there, but historical record
there's a need to make the point. We are members of the IMF.
Right.
And if at any point in time we believe that we need assistance from IMF...
Especially after discovering oil.
Well, I was going to go step by step. There's nothing really wrong with that. Otherwise, we should pull out of the membership. Why are we still there? And why were we there then? That's the point I'm making. But there's a reason why we've gone there. You see, let me be honest with you. This time around, why I think there are people who are surprised, or disappointed, and one of whom is me, is because not too long ago, we had touted to the whole world some unprecedented achievements in terms of our macroeconomic development. The last time we went to IMF before this one was the 2009 to 2012 program. Within the context of these 3 years, we were told about economic achievements that this country chalked. And for me, that is why we are a bit disappointed, or let me say I'm a bit disappointed, in the sense that where did all those rosy achievements go? How did they dissipate into thin air? It comes back to what Barima had been very recurrent on, the lack of fiscal and monetary discipline. That's the bottom line. Because otherwise, see, it doesn't make sense to me that between 2009 to 2012, all those achievements were advertised to make us look like a country that was moving forward, only suddenly to come confronted with this kind of challenge and to go back to the IMF. I believe you remember the president not too long ago indicated that this is the last time we'll be going to the IMF. I don't know whether if you remember. He pledged.
He promised.
He promised that it will be the last time we'll be going to the IMF. You know what that means? That means that it is possible not to go to the IMF, dependent on how you manage your economy. So clearly, the quality of management of the Ghanaian economy in the last 3-4 years is what has resulted in our return to the IMF. And that's worrying. If this IMF program, and I have my own ideological reservations relative to IMF and its programs, I have to be very honest with that. But you see, if this program would ensure that we restore a certain level of fiscal and monetary discipline, then why not? Yeah. I mean, this is being realistic about it. Then why not? It's a shame that we needed a certain external input to be able to restore internal fiscal and monetary discipline. That's a shame after 58 years of independence. Let's be honest with ourselves. But if that is what will bring that discipline, that sanity, then I'm for it. But what are those things? I haven't seen the full complement of the IMF program. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
We've only had tidbits here and there. So that's key as we discuss these things. But what are the areas? It's obvious to me that the cut in public expenditure is on the cards. Maybe Apak can elaborate. But if there is a cut, because we're going to have to discipline ourselves in the kind of public expenditure, then I can see a situation where that tall list of development projects that were outlined, that the president outlined in the State of Nation address is going to suffer some deficit. We clearly are going to have to cut down there. We are clearly going to have to do something about subsidies. Already we've been removing them over a long period of time. Clearly we are going to have that situation where it means utility prices will have to go up. This is the challenge. Okay? The discipline that must come from the leadership, those who manage the economy, as well as those in charge of governance, has to be complemented by a sacrifice from the masses, the labor force. This mix is an explosive one. Do we have the capacity to contain and to sustain this challenge? As for leadership and the managers of the economy, over the years, we haven't seen much of the discipline. We haven't seen much of them committing themselves to that regime of discipline. I'm hoping this time around we'll see it.
You've signed to it, where we're even doing over the 10% that we are supposed to take from the central bank. Now we're going to do, is it 5%?
Yeah, but you see, go back to the 2009.
I'm wondering how that is possible.
See, go to the 2000.
All of this is indicated in the government.
You're going to election
towards a zero percentage.
Something.
Yes.
Do a content analysis of the 2009-2012 program. Quite a lot of these conditionalities were in there.
Okay.
Indeed, if you go back even to the 2001 to 2003-4 one, those conditions are there. They are almost repetitive. Cut down on expenditure, withdraw subsidies, you know, all those things.
And did they work?
And they didn't work.
Absolutely.
But they didn't work, Gabi, because sometimes the leadership that commits itself to those programs don't exercise the appropriate discipline.
Absolutely.
The masses keep sacrificing.
And is that not genetic?
Almost.
Absolutely. Politically genetic.
Well, what you are saying is that you feel
so whilst I'm
and you expect us to, but we will not.
As a Ghanaian, and I'm not talking here the partisanship of our politics.
Okay.
I would wish this thing works to the extent that it will restore that discipline in our fiscal and monetary policies. I would wish.
Okay.
Because we will all be beneficiaries.
Right.
But would the masses be ready to take or to bite the bullet, that element of sacrifice that must accompany the discipline, would we be able to engineer it?
Very interesting point there.
And to what end?
Now,
Yes,
now,
to what end?
Now, yeah,
I
see,
agree.
I had referred to the purpose that it was supposed to bring job creation and also to grow the economy. A friend of mine, who is very controversial, he asked the question. He says, create jobs by cutting your GDP by 2%. What jobs? Pastors, imams, and magicians? Is that who we are?
Well, if you may permit me, I think I have a fundamental legal issue concerning all this. Because reading the summary from the IMF report,
Right.
I mean, what they are giving us is a loan. It's a loan. I mean, they've clearly stated the IMF has granted Ghana a loan of $918 million.
Yeah, it's not a gift. Yeah.
What is a loan? The Constitution provides the definition for a loan. Article 181, Clause 6. For purposes of this article, loan includes any monies lent or given to or by the government on condition of return or repayment and any other form of borrowing or lending in respect of which monies from the consolidated fund or any other public fund may be used for payment or repayment, or monies from any fund by whatever name called, established for the purposes of payment or repayment, whether directly or indirectly, may be used for payment or repayment. The question is, have we complied with Article 181? I have had calls to talk to some senior members of Parliament. They say that it has not been laid before Parliament because Article 181 clearly spells out the procedure. Clause 3, no loan shall be raised by government on behalf of itself or any other public institution or authority, otherwise by or under the authority of an Act of Parliament. The Act of Parliament enacted in accordance with Clause 3 of this article shall provide that the terms and conditions of a loan shall be laid before Parliament and shall not come into operation unless they have been approved by a resolution of Parliament. When I asked, I was told that, well, we are members of IMF, and this is how we've done it all the time.
No, it's not true. There are other times Parliament came in.
Well, that was the information that I was saying. But then,
so what Kweku just said, if you didn't hear, is that the other times we went to the IMF, Parliament, the process was subjected to parliamentary approval. I've heard Dr. Anthony Akutose suggest that if the proper thing is not done, he may be compelled to take a suit.
It will be interesting to know some of the people I heard this information from, but we can find out later. But it still remains a fact that this agreement, loan agreement, portions of which we understand have been received by us, have not complied with the clear provisions of Article 181. And that is...
Have we received them, the loan?
Understand
we are to receive it.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know.
We are to receive the first tranche.
Well, but then there is still an opportunity for this agreement to go before Parliament.
And again, by way
Valid
of
point.
information, my understanding is that the first tranche, we are likely, every year, we are likely to get $300 million over the next 3 years.
Yes. So that is the first point. And I think it's important that, because I maintain that we are in this situation because the managers of our economy have consistently, or in most cases, refused or failed to comply with clear provisions of our laws. When the law clearly spells out how much the executive can take from the consolidated fund, they have the key, but the law is that you have to go to Parliament for approval before you can take some specific amount. You refuse, and then you even take more without approval. Of course, they come to Parliament and and they can go back and spend more. The example Gabi gave is a clear one. I mean, relating to the...
But why would you think, that our government we have known to have ignored Article 1815 and suffered a hefty blow at the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court has not been hesitant at all in declaring such transactions as null and void,
yes,
for which now we have the Waterville matters and we had the Balkan energy matters and all of that. And the Supreme Court now says it is tired. If you have any such matter, just go to the High Court because it's tired interpreting the same rule over and again. Why would you think we would know that this is required and will bypass it?
Oh, well, but that's as I said, there are clear examples of instances where, and that is what is bringing about the fiscal indiscipline. Because we have clear laws that regulate how we should take monies from the consolidated fund. Now, you ask how, and those I spoke to told me, well, we are members of the IMF, and so that is how it has been done. This is an authority, somebody I can call authority on this matter from Parliament. So that is there. If we haven't, because I don't want the situation where we will start spending this money, only for someone to go to maybe the High Court this time, as you said, and for the whole agreement to be declared void. It is becoming too regular that it is part of the reasons why confidence in the management of our economy is waning. Because I understand that one of the reasons why foreign direct investment is not being received now is the loss of confidence. Because it is becoming too clear that the state will engage in contract with foreign or international institutions. Then, at the end of the day, your Supreme Court or your court will say that, well, you did not comply with the clear provision. So, whatever benefit the state has, that has inured to the benefit of the state can keep it. But the investor who brought the money in can go without getting any benefit. Of course, people will say that if you are also an investor, you need to have recourse to lawyers in the country to advise you on the laws of the country relating to that. So that is my first point. Then secondly, as to whether or not we even had to go. Again, I think it is even an affront on our sovereignty as a nation. That after the executive has complied with clear constitutional provisions, presented budget, an appropriation act has been passed, a foreign entity is able to substantially amend it and impose other conditions on us. How much are we asking? We just asking, been granted $918 million. If you look at today's graphic, Dumso cost Ghana $924 million last year alone. Dollars. More than what IMF is giving us for 3 years.
I think I heard a lady from ISA yesterday whose estimates about $4 billion, up to about $4 billion.
Yes.
So this is even, it looks like very conservative.
Yes, this is what is here, and very today's graphic.
Absolutely.
So I'm saying that why should we have to sell or mortgage our sovereignty just for a little more than $300 and something million a year? Again, it is very interesting to read from the IMF report that one of the reasons why we are in this situation is the erratic supply of gas to supply electricity. So what about all the other reasons that we've been given? That's why we've always held that if doing so is self-inflicted.
May I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
We're looking for solutions to the economic problems, isn't it?
We are.
So what is our problem?
Our problem is
the government.
One, first of all, and I have said that non-compliance with strict provisions of the law, which is meant to actually serve as a bar.
You're hungry, you're looking for
That is
food.
a systemic
You're
problem.
being supplied food, you're complaining.
Well, even the Israelites complain about manna when after they have been supplied. But don't forget that I am going to pay for this money in future, or my children will. Ask anybody whether he has even cited a copy of the loan agreement between Ghana and IMF. I haven't.
Not
I have
yet.
asked a lot of people. We're talking about lack of transparency. Isn't this one of the
We are told that
reasons
we made available to us subsequently.
Well, that is the reason why, at least, the spirit of the Constitution and the clear letters say that furnish Parliament with copies of all agreements that will commit Ghana and Ghanaians to repayment of any loan given us. That is one. Then, when you read further, what is even disheartening again is the fact that we want IMF to support
Yeah,
or
I
help
want
us.
you to point one thing that is not disheartening. So far, you are pointing at things that are
Disheartening.
disheartening. I want one thing, because the money is coming
One thing.
to give us some reprieve.
How much of it? Can I tell you that our stabilization and heritage funds, which are invested in the US, will be 10 times more than what the IMF is giving us? Is it not the same money that is being recycled? We take these monies there, they give us less than 1% as interest. We go to the same market and take over 8%. That is why I want to know how much are we, the interest we are paying, even on this IMF agreement. Then also, are we sure that, again, what is securing this agreement, this loan? Are we sure that our petroleum resources...
The thing is, with the IMF, when you take money from them, you have to pay them before you pay any other.
Of course, but
Yeah,
it
so
will
I'm
still
just
be
saying, whatever
secured.
it is, whatever it is.
Yes.
Okay.
So because you see,
you
my
pay them
concern is
without
because the Petroleum Revenue
thinking whether you
Management
can
Act
pay or
makes
not.
it clear whether even we can even use a portion of the petroleum resources as security. And those who argue that we can, it still limits that to. So my point is, are we complying with even the laws of Ghana? I cannot answer, and I made a lot of effort to get a copy or ask those who should know. They all don't seem to know. So
All right.
my
Okay,
conclusion
let me take
on
a
this,
couple of
no, just a
messages
quick
here.
one.
Yeah,
My
he's
conclusion-
raising a lot of very interesting issues.
Let him conclude. He says he's
My-
concluding.
my-
should
Let him
calm down.
conclude. Let him conclude.
I am. I'm very concerned about how much my children and grandchildren are going to be
Especially
committed to.
the non-compliance with law.
Yes, and I'm saying that if we do, we wouldn't have to go to IMF. And again, I don't think that we do not have the capacity in this country for all these advice to be given to us. And we have to rely, I mean, we know people have taught these IMF people, they are in Ghana.
Have you not heard that the IMF simply came to endorse our own homegrown
Yes.
policies?
Policy.
So they didn't come to dictate anything to
And
us.
we
No, but the point is, then, what
policy
is the need?
credibility
What
in
is
the
the need
global-
for us
Very
to
interesting.
go to
In the
IMF
global
to give us
very
policy
interesting.
credibility?
Okay.
But
And
Samson,
you
I
know,
think
they're
Samson,
going to play
okay.
the scene
I don't
Okay.
think you have been fair.
on
You
non-concessionary
have not been
borrowing
fair to government's position. Because most of the questions,
been fair to
most of the questions are answered if you had looked or allowed us to look at the content of the statement signed by the Honorable Minister for Finance
The
about
questions.
what the
Okay,
program
that's
is
that
supposed
was
to.
at your election
supposed
when
to
I
do.
asked you the question to refer to Setepe and give the answers.
Well, I have it here.
Okay, so read just the small portion you want to read to us,
yes,
and
so-
let's move on.
So it says, let me go quickly. The structural reforms are mainly in the areas of revenue administration, tax policy, public finance management, payroll and human resources management, public sector reforms, debt management, and the supervision and regulation of the financial system. Further initiatives to strengthen the institutions include the Ghana Infrastructure Development Fund, the Sinking Fund, and the Exim Bank, both in the budget and as part of the program.
Can I summarize what it means?
What does it mean?
It means that cut down on expenditure
Oh,
and
Gabi.
increase your tax revenue. That's all. That's
Which
basically
we can do.
No, I'm saying that's all that you said. What it means
I
that
haven't
cut down on
actually- that is your
expenditure.
interpretation.
No, but you just said it. Read it again.
I
That's basically what it
just
says.
itemized
Cut down your,
what the
your
program is going
expenditure
to involve.
and increase your tax revenue.
And that should put
Okay.
this matter to rest.
Okay, Gabi,
Yeah.
we know that the project or the program is for balance of payment support.
Which is what the IMF was created for.
Explain to us, what does that mean? And that will mean something very significant, a departure from all you have had to say about the program.
You know, look, my point is, I am
Explain,
happy.
not your
No,
balance.
I'm coming.
Balance of payment.
I'm coming. I am happy that we are going to the IMF because we haven't been able to even support the CD. We haven't been able to create the necessary discipline, and the IMF will give us that credibility, and hopefully, I'm saying, but did we have to go there? And then, when you go back to the history, because in 2009 we were there, and we weren't able to do anything with the programs that we said we were going to do. So I am skeptical about the capacity of this government to employ the necessary discipline to achieve the very things that this program is supposed to get us to
Something
achieve.
he hasn't answered
My
your
fear,
question.
no, I'm coming. No,
Okay.
so my fear.
I've got to take some messages
to a
and then
point,
we'll move
like
on.
I said,
Yeah.
900 million, you got 1 billion from Eurobond. Did it help us? The city still went down.
And it's to support balance of payment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
To support your currency
your
for
currency,
trade.
that's basically what it is.
Okay.
And I'm saying that, did that help us? It didn't help us. Because what? The city still became the worst performing currency in Africa.
You keep
This
singing
year.
that song.
No, I'm not singing. That is
Okay.
the song
Thank
that you are playing
Thank you,
for
gentlemen.
us.
Thank you,
How am I
gentlemen.
supposed to sing?
Koku,
Well,
30
you are
seconds.
singing.
Sorry,
Keep
Koku,
making
30
a
seconds.
reference to
I
that.
30
think that
seconds.
we
Yeah.
need government to respond to this question raised, whether they intend taking the agreement to Parliament for approval or
Right.
not.
Right.
If not, why not?
Okay.
It's very basic.
I
Because
know-
the previous
I know-
ones had.
I know
gone
the
to
Minister of
Parliament.
Finance listens to this show, and the other ministers of in the Finance Ministry, you listen to this show. Please, let's know. Is government intended to take this program or this particular loan to Parliament for approval? Oliver Bamba in Salega says the IMF intervention would significantly boost investor confidence in the Ghanaian economy and further reduce the financial indiscipline peculiar to Ghana before, during, and the post-election periods. Abdul Rahman says the government has not been sincere with Ghanaians on the major reasons that necessitated her going to the IMF. The government keep changing the goalposts. Initially, it was on policy credibility. It graduated to homegrown solutions, and now $980 billion loan has been secured. Okay. Sometimes I think when we don't appreciate the issues properly, then our queries may not, be rightly positioned. Thank you for some of those messages. Ata Imoro in Wellensley says, if in 2014 the Eurobond as well as the Cocoa syndicated loan could do us the magic, I am just imagining what this $1 billion
Could not do us the magic.
Could not do us. I'm just imagining what this $1 million
Over 3 years.
thing for 3 years will do. Lee says Dr. Park has his figures. Gabi has his figures. So where are Ghana's figures? Dan in Kumasi says Honorable Joe White read a statement from the IMF representative in Ghana, which states that those who come to the IMF are the states that fail to manage their finances. It means the NDC has failed in the management of the economy. Cyril says, where lies the justification in blaming the single spine salary when there has clearly been a commensurate increase in the taxes and revenue? This assertion is clearly inaccurate. The economy has clearly been mismanaged. Some of us who import into the country bearing the brunt of the incompetent government. Shaibu. Okay, I'll return to continue with the rest of the text messages. We'll take a break at this point. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show, and sincere apologies for the breaks in transmission on radio. Forgive us for that. Now that it's been sorted out, let's continue. But also, when the show is over, you can always go to YouTube or myjoyonline.com, and you can have the show and watch all over again. Where you missed, you can also watch that. And every day, Saturday, I get really excited. Shortly after the show, I visit YouTube and I see hundreds, thousands visiting and clicking on Newsfile to watch the program either all over again or freshly. Now, this from Fred. He says, HIPIC was a product of poor management of the national economy by the NDC administration. The reality is that anytime the NDC has opportunity to be in government, they succeed in driving the economy to its knees. We are seeing a manifestation of that again with the IMF. The other ones are here. This one says, ask Kweku Bako, define for me what fiscal discipline is. Is he saying government shouldn't pay or put up roads, hospitals, schools, etc.? And to Gabi, Ghana had cocoa, timber, gold, and others with smaller population, yet went to IMF in 1958 for help. And this is coming from Larry.
We signed on as members of IMF. We didn't go to IMF for any program then. It's an extension.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Now, got lots more of your messages on the IMF issue and a lot of bashing. Musa Ali Kone says, I sincerely think the deal with the IMF will help our economy to expand further. Let us not criminalize any assistance from an external agency such as the IMF.
Expanded from what? 3.8 to 3.5%?
Okay, Gavi, it's not question time. Ken Autry says, something baffles me. Didn't the country receive $2.5 billion 6 months ago? To what extent did that money impact on the Ghanaian economy? And we are supposed to clap for what? Less than $1 billion US dollars. If the government means serious business, they should collect the monies they have given to the cronies, Woyome, Jida, Sada, etc. Wanda Theophilo says, Clement Park, is he listening to himself? Because MPP went to the IMF. There is absolutely nothing wrong if the NDC government takes us back to the IMF. He doesn't like that line of argument. Abdulaziz says, Gabi talks about export revenue as if all of it comes to the central government.
A percentage of it.
Okay, he says you talk about it as if all of it comes to the central government. Whether cocoa, gold, or oil, the state has its shares in terms of taxes and royalties depending on the agreement and the chunk of the revenue that goes to the producers or the investors. With regards to cocoa, about 70% goes to the farmer to compensate for his toil in tilling the land. And that is from Aziz in London. Thank you very much for your messages. I'll find time and share a few more of them. There are quite a lot of them.